All right, we're here with Don Hansen. We're gonna touch back in. We got up to 1964 with you. We were talking about how good the good old days were when you guys were settling the jackpot with tom cod, catching lots of nice tom cod. How good it was in the good old days. So
those were the good old days. Yeah, you're right. Exactly, 100% true. Those were the good old days when you can take 60 people in the morning, 60 people in the afternoon, and settle a jackpot with a tom cod. A white croaker, not tom cod. They're white croaker.
Okay.
And it is, so anyway, we'll go on from 1964 to where, David? Where do you
Let's get up to
next?
where they decided to build Dana Point Harbor, and you were coming. You had to make a choice to come here, and
Well, that was interesting.
how did you come up with that? Dana Point Harbor, isn't it the newest harbor on the coast?
Yes, it is. It was built in well, we came here in 1971, but to get here, we were negotiating with different people for the lease of the harbor for the sport fishing landings at the time. And we knew we had to try to be successful because we'd be killed if we stayed at the pier. The pier was a long walk out back and forth, and
a lot of liability, right? With the loading and unloading of people.
If you remember correctly, when you were out there with us, it was really hairy. We had 2 people on the boat, 2 people on the ramp, and you go up and down the swells, and you throw the people back and forth. Never lost a person, though. Thank God. Never lost a person all the years I ran the boat off the pier, and knocked a few coffee cups off the restaurant, and knocked a few people down, but never knocked everybody in the water. But so it was a challenge to get to the harbor, and it really was a challenge. We partnershiped with, or tried to partnership with quite a few different people, and they said yes, yes, yes until it actually got to the final end. Phil Tozier and I were going to be partners. Phil had Davies Locker, and him and Jimmy Schaefer and I were all going to partner here. Then at the end, they decided to stay where they were, and so I, with my friend and my partner J.D. Dapper, we went to the county of Orange, and were successful enough to be able to be the successful bidder to get the harbor.
So let's talk a little bit about, since you were here in the beginning stages when they built Dana Point Harbor. There's a lot of people that don't understand how that came about and how that began. And I remember going up on the hill with you when we were a little kid, and you were telling me they were going to build a harbor here, and I only grew up on the pier, so I didn't even know what that meant. But we got to watch him dump the rocks. We got to watch the whole thing. But you were already an adult, so you kind of understood what was going on. So why don't you explain a little bit of the building of Dana Point? You were here.
Oh yeah, I was here. I put stuff in the time capsule 50 years ago, which was opened here recently. And with the new renovation of the harbor here that changed the subject for a second, they're going to build another time capsule right around my office here, and put another one in for another 50 years. But I don't think I'll be here to open that one. Anyway, the concept of the harbor originally was to go from Dana Point all the way down to San Mateo Point, which would have been an unbelievable,
oh my God,
unbelievable harbor at that time. But that was really a pipe dream at that time. And then they finally figured out how much money they had. They kept cutting it off and off and off. It was going to go down to Sacramento Pier, then it was going to go to Poche, and then it was going to go to Campshadow Beach, and then it was going to go to and then it cut out what it is now. But it was unique to watch them build it because they did it. That's the first time I've ever seen. They laid it out, and this was where we are now is dry land, where the water is. They dammed it and then dug it all out and then filled it back in. But there's pictures of that. You can go back and look at that history. But the idea was to do it with lasers, and it was unbelievable. They could set those barges and those rocks with lasers, and that's how they built the breakwater. And
in the 60s, that's
the 60s,
amazing.
Yeah, they went all the way out to the end there. The interesting thing is watching the trucks bring the rock. The big rock came from Vista and Escondido, the big rock. The small filler rock came from Catalina on the barges. But the big rock was brought in by truck. The truck would drive down and hit the turntable and turn the truck around. The truck would then back up and offload to the crane, and the crane would set the rock. It was a slow process, but it's still here and working very well, except they had one problem that's always been that way. That's where the sand's in at the north part. or what do you want to call that up there, the west end of the harbor. The sand comes in. It was designed that way to let the water flow through there, but it was designed to let all that sand in and out. But anyway, that's the story of how the harbor was built, and that's when we moved here.
So that island out here, when you go over the bridge and go onto the island, that's all man-made.
That's all man-made.
That used to be all rocks, and they had to blow them up, or what?
Well, that was
How'd that come about?
That was all from that man-made island in was all closed, and we have people like Kenny Nielsen and Bobby Lorman. Those guys were asked to come down there when they drained this thing out completely out of all the abalone and the lobster and everything that were in the water. These guys came and got them and replanted them, so they're back outside there. But that was all that came out of dry land there, and they dug it out where it is now, and then filled it back up with water after they took the little.
So how'd they get all the water out?
Just kept pumping it all out.
So what, they dam the front of the harbor?
Dam the corners. You'll see that if you look at a picture of the harbor, you'll see how they dammed it, and then you can see how they took everything out of there. But it's kind of hard to explain without
the pictures.
So, but
we'll have the pictures up on the website. You guys
Okay.
can see what we're talking about here. So, big deal. You're moving your boats. You're coming to Dana Point, 1971. You brought the operation here to the harbor.
brought the operation to the harbor. We stayed in a trailer for a year as we built our building, which we're still in now. We just did a major modification of the building last year here. So we came here in 1971. We brought the boats off the pier here with us, the Sun Fund, the Clemente, and the Real Fund. And then I bought the Seahorse from Phil Tozier, and it started running. As you know, you ran it, so. Then we added some charter boats. Spike Taft brought the Patrician down from Newport, and we had Chuck Taft was here with his boat.
Got 1 sec. Oh, oh shit.
All right, so we were talking, and you were telling us about the charter boats you had come in. You bought the Seahorse, and so who's some of the celebrities that showed up here when you first built the harbor? You had some captains that are kind of big time nowadays. You had a boat called the Patrician. Somebody was working on there. He was kind of a big deal nowadays. He was like the second operator on there.
Oh yeah, he was my pinhead deckhand though at the pier.
Yeah.
So that goes back even further. And we're talking about the world famous Frank Lopresti, and Frank was the second, or whatever you want to call it, on the Patrician. I think he ran it. You know, him and Spike were good. Were related at the time there, so that worked out fine for
Spike Taft, you guys. Spike Taft has a couple of boys down at H&M Landing that work down there. The Taft brothers, Bobby and Chucky, and this is all real stuff, guys. This is history. This stuff goes way back. You remember Chuck and Bob when they were kids working down here?
Oh
Dana
yeah.
Wharf on the Patrician.
There's a funny story about Chuck, and he'll laugh when he hears the story about him. But he had the Channel Clipper here, a little charter boat, because his dad had the Patrician. And if you're familiar with Dana Point Harbor, you know it's a stone throw and you're out of the harbor. He's the only guy in the 50 years we've been here that got a speeding ticket in the harbor because he had a hurry to get out, and I don't know why he had a hurry, but Chuck, you remember. So anyway, that's the story on Chuck Taft. There's probably a million more I could tell about all those people, but let's move on.
So the Patrician came down, Channel Clipper. What else came? Because you had a bunch of docks and you had four
Oh, we
boats.
had Gary Kate brought the fisherman from Pacific Landing down here. This fisherman was here for a while, and then we had quite a few boats here at one time. We had a couple from San Diego up because we had all these docks. Now we've got our own boats in most of the docks. And over a period of time, they're all our boats with the catamarans and the Dana Pride and et cetera, et cetera. We've filled all the docks up now.